Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson is here. He was supposed to travel to Beijing for cybersecurity meetings, but canceled his plans after the attack. Secretary Johnson, good morning. Great to have you here.
Nora, thanks for having me back.
Let's ask this first. Is there any evidence right now that this shooter had accomplices or was working with anyone else that may be a threat to our security today?
At this stage in the investigation, we know of no accomplices. We do not believe at this stage that this was a terrorist-directed attack, as we say. All the signs are this was an incident of terrorist-inspired acts, an individual who self-radicalized and committed, obviously, a mass atrocity here in our homeland.
What's the most disturbing thing we have found out about him?
Well, let me begin with this. The president's #1 priority is protection of the homeland, protection of the American people. All of us in this administration, this is our top priority. We are doing so militarily through airstrikes. We're taking out a number of members of the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, the AQ-affiliated elements of Al-Shabaab. We're going to continue to do that. We're focused on those who are focused on external operations in particular. Our law enforcement community is focused on this, and in Homeland Security, we're focused on it as well. In this environment where we have to be concerned about not just terrorist-directed attacks, but terrorist-inspired attacks, those who self-radicalize, it requires a whole-of-government approach, which includes building bridges to communities, American Muslim communities, encouraging them to, if they see something, say something. It is almost always the case when someone self-radicalizes that there is somebody close to them who sees the signs. And so we've been at this since I've been secretary, and we're going to continue to build bridges to American Muslim communities, not vilify them, drive them into the corner, into the shadows.
I think that's the question many people have, is how many other Mateens out there are there today that may have been looked at by the FBI that are in the process of self-radicalization?
And the second question follows that is, and how do you find them?
The FBI does an excellent job in its counterterrorism efforts of investigating, interviewing individuals that we suspect of potential terrorist plotting. Jim Comey has said that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of open investigations at any one time. The FBI is very good at what they do. They're very aggressive at what they do. I have a lot of confidence in the FBI because routinely they are investigating, interdicting, and taking down terrorist plots to our homeland.
So you don't think anybody dropped the ball here? James Comey was saying it's like looking for a needle in a very large haystack, a nationwide haystack, he called it.
But he said they'd look at it again, too.
And they would look at it again.
The Orlando shooter was interviewed 3 times. He was thoroughly investigated. Based upon what we knew at the time, there was nothing further to pursue, based on what we knew at the time.
But it does raise a question again about gun control. I keep wondering what it's going to take. I was on the plane from Orlando, and it was so interesting, Secretary Johnson. On one hand, you had a family coming from Disney World, all excited with their Mickey Mouse ears. In another seat, there was a man who had just been at the club. He told me he left at 1:36, right before the shooting started. He was still basically in shock. And it just raised the question about here, you're the happiest place on earth, Orlando, and then within a 24-hour period, you have 2 terrible shootings. What will it take to move the needle when it comes to gun control? People thought it would be Sandy Hook.
Well, you're asking me about gun control.
Yes.
I am not anxious to plunge into yet another difficult, contentious issue like the ones I already have. I do believe, however, that meaningful, responsible gun control is now part and parcel of Homeland Security. It's critical to public safety, but we have to face the fact that meaningful, responsible gun control has to be part of Homeland Security as well, given the prospect of homegrown, homeborn violent extremism in this country. We've seen this now with Orlando, tragically, with San Bernardino. And it's something that I think the American public and the Congress has to face and has to address.
And if they're on a watch list, should they be able to buy an assault weapon?
Well, a number of people have made the point that there are individuals who are on our no-fly list, who are on various other lists, who are able to purchase a weapon in this country. I believe that that's something that has to be addressed. I think that those of us in the executive branch and in the legislative branch have to face this.
With great respect, Mr. Secretary, you are head of Homeland Security. What do you think?
I believe that meaningful, responsible gun control is part of Homeland Security, and it's something we have to address.
Is this a
And
new
the
change?
capacity
Is
to
this a
buy.
change? Is this the first time you're saying this? Is this a change?
I have not talked about gun control publicly at this point, but I think that we have to face the fact that gun control is part and parcel of Homeland Security,
But
given
wait.
how things are evolving.
But simply put, you can be on the terrorist watch list, which I've just looked up this morning. There are 700,000 people on the terrorist watch list. You can buy a semi-automatic weapon if you're on that list. If you're on the no-fly list, meaning you cannot get on an airplane in this country, but you can buy a semi-automatic weapon.
And specifically the
The
A-15,
president
which is
and
the weapon
others have
being used
noted
in
that.
most
That
of
is
these.
correct, yes.
The A-15, the weapon used in most of these cases.
Yes, and you can see the devastation and the death that one assault rifle with a number of magazines can bring about.
That he bought within the
This is-
past week.
Look, this is something I want to be clear about.
Yes.
I believe that there are ways to get at meaningful, responsible gun control. We need to do something to minimize the opportunities for terrorists to get a gun in this country. And this is now something that is critical to Homeland Security as well as public safety.
Without infringing on the rights of
Without
lawful
infringing
gun
on the
owners.
Second Amendment as interpreted by the Supreme Court, and without infringing on the rights and the ability of responsible gun owners to own a gun.
I think there's a feeling in the country, that, and you are aware of it, and I know you feel strongly, that not to do anything is not the answer right now. You know, that not to feel the sense of urgency and to call on all forces of government to come together and try to deal with these problems, and especially the homegrown issue and the gun issue.
I thought, frankly, after Sandy Hook,
Yes.
where you have school children murdered in a classroom, that maybe finally this was going to be the tipping point. And we were not able to move the needle in Congress, unfortunately. I'd like to see us continue to go at this. I know the president is frustrated. I know the president is determined. And this has become a matter of Homeland Security that we have to address.
There is a way that
That's
the
an
two
important
sides can
point you're
exist.
making.
Yes, very much so. There's a
Secretary
side that the
Johnson.
two sides can work together on this.
Secretary Johnson,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.